illuminated signboard by Printforce that offers round-the-clock visibility and features that maximise advertising space, improving your exposure. Buyers can now see the full picture, day or night, with Nightlight's edge-to-edge illuminated surface, which utilises environmentally friendly, scratch-resistant technology. Nightlight is as versatile as you need to be in today's market.
And we welcome once again Bruce Cotterill. Bruce, I mentioned in the introduction there that we'd run through the 10 reasons why organisations fail. Good morning and welcome to the show once again, Bruce.
Thanks, Kevin. Good morning.
Okay. All right, let's walk through those 10 reasons.
Well, I guess the first one is what we talked about yesterday, Kevin, and that is that the leadership is not clear about what they're trying to achieve. And I've walked into countless organisations over the years that are struggling for a variety of reasons, and it can be a review of a large government department, one of Australia's largest companies, a number of New Zealand's largest companies over the years, and I always try to ask that question early on. What are you trying to achieve? And most times people can't answer that question. I even had one guy and said, "Oh yeah, we're absolutely clear on that," and he started, and about halfway through the second sentence, he ran out of things to say, and he started laughing, and he said, you don't know how much that question made me think. So just number one, clarity of purpose. Why are we here? And as I said in yesterday's discussion, there's a whole lot of reasons that drive people to be in business, or drive people to be in sales, or drive people to be doing whatever they're doing, working for charities, whatever. But it helps to understand what that is. Number two is what I refer to as consistency. So are the values that are being demonstrated by the leadership and the managers in the business, are those values consistent with what we're expecting of the business? So this whole thing of consistency, and I might tell you a little story on that at some time during this discussion if the opportunity arises. Number three is teamwork, making sure that everybody's working on the same thing. I see organisations all the time where people, turn up to work each day and guess and do their job. Nobody's really told them what their job is, why their job's important, how their job contributes to the overall thing. And so you end up with people in different parts of the business sometimes working against each other. And so it's really important that everybody understands what you're trying to achieve, and then you're creating the opportunity for teamwork. Number four is kind of interesting at the moment. So we're surrounded by, the global mess that is COVID-19. And number four, when I wrote the book, I wrote that senior managers fail to identify and accept problems early enough. And in the last 3 months, I've seen this over and over again. I've seen some companies who did all the right things very early on when COVID-19 struck. They shored up their supply lines. They got in open discussions with their customers about how they were going to do things. In some cases, they cut salaries early or reduced working hours early. And yet here we are 3 months later, and I know of some companies that are still grappling with those decisions. So a failure to respond in a timely manner is a reason that organisations fail over and over and over again. And sometimes it's because they don't identify the problems, and sometimes it's just because they're slow to respond. And again, if you come back to what you're trying to achieve and understand that, then you get into a tough time and the decisions are obvious. But because organisations aren't clear about what they're trying to achieve, they fail to respond to those challenges. A little bit like I've already touched on, but number five, when the people within the business are not fully informed and they tend to go to work each day and react. And we talked about that Schwarzkopf example in an earlier session. When people are clear about what they're trying to achieve or what you're trying to achieve, then they understand what their role is. Most people go to work every day and do what they think they're meant to do, Kevin. And so and you imagine that, the average sort of small to medium-sized business, you imagine, the person on the front desk who's just reacting all day. Nobody really trains her. She gets told off when the kitchen's not tidy, even though sometimes nobody told her it was her job to clean the kitchen. And she ends up reacting without really fully understanding what the important parts of her role are. So if we can get our people going to work each day and doing what they know they're meant to do, rather than what they think they're meant to do, then we've got an opportunity to change things. And number 6 sort of flows on from that, and that's a failure to express the roles of the people in a way that the people understand what their role is, and in a way that ties sort of people into the business. So, I had an experience last year, a very large car dealership, brand new, absolutely beautiful, and I walked in to see the management team, and they were all very proud. And there's a big puddle on the floor by the new lineup of cars. And I said, "Gee, you got a problem with the new roof?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why don't you got some customers over there, why don't you just throw a towel on the floor and wipe that up?" And they all looked around at each other as if to say, "Gee, whose job is that?" And I have this thing, nothing happens in business unless it's somebody's job. And so one of the things we've got to try and do is make sure that when we sit down with our people, we say, "This is your role, this is what the company's trying to achieve, and this is how your role contributes to that." If we can do that, then you start to create some magic within the business. Number 7, remuneration structures that don't align with what the business objectives are. Sometimes we have, the classic one is we remunerate salespeople based on revenue, irrespective of the margin that it brings in. And yet we remunerate managers on profit targets. So we've got to understand what's important with the business as a whole. And in my view, there's not a role in business that can't have some form of incentive attached to it. But it's critical that all of those incentives align with the business objectives. I know that sounds really obvious, but again, most businesses don't do it. Number 8, the leaders themselves failing to meet the expectations that they create around them. So in other words, we say to our people, "We want you here at 8 o'clock in the morning, we want you here till 5 o'clock at night, we want you to work hard all day," and yet the manager or the leader is somebody who's hardly ever there. And there's nothing that makes people lose interest more quickly than that sort of stuff. So whatever expectations we're setting, we've got to be prepared to fulfill those expectations ourselves. Number 9, unrealistic expectations that the customer understands what we're talking about. In other words, making sure that whatever it is we're all about, our customers know that. Because we often think that our customers know, but they don't. We assume that they know, or that we assume that they see our advertising, or we assume that they see our charity work. You've got to be out there telling your customer all the time that you exist, that these things are important to you. Because as I say to people all the time, the chances of us being in front of our customer at the time our customer makes a decision to buy are really, really low. So what we have to do is make sure that when the customer makes a decision to buy, there's something in that decision that triggers them to come to us. So just dealing with the expectations of the customers and making sure our customers know what we're about. And last but not least, which is the only one of the 10 that doesn't flow off the very first point, which is clarity of purpose and being clear about what you're trying to achieve. A lack of financial management and control is the 10th reason that organisations fail. And sadly, we're seeing a bit of that out there at the moment. Companies that, despite the good markets that we had before, perhaps didn't put enough money away for a rainy day. So those are the 10 reasons that I think organisations fail.
It's interesting that you make that point right at the end there, and you make it in the book as well, that the 10th one is the only one that doesn't relate to the first one, which is all about clarity. And I was so pleased that we touched on clarity earlier in the week, because I think it's the foundation, it's where it all starts, and that gives you the vision. Over the next couple of days, we'll pick up on the other couple of C's. It will naturally follow on from that. The next one will be communication, and then we'll talk about consistency on Friday. Bruce Cotterill is my guest, and the book is called The Best Leaders Don't Shout. It's going to be available for you. There's links on all of the shows this week to make sure that you get your copy. It's a fabulous book. I've got to tell you, it is a great book and well worth reading if you want to be a leader. There you go. Hey, Bruce, thanks for your time, mate. We'll look forward to coming back tomorrow.
Thanks, Kevin. See you tomorrow.
The Daily RE Uncut Show is powered by CoreLogic and supported by Printforce, Rockend and Realty.com.au. Realty.com.au is where you will see all our shows. Real Estate Talk, The Property Show, Auction Update, and of course RE Uncut. We are the home of property.